Hi everybody, it's me again. I want to go through this chapter 3 in Strategic Financial Management this chapter 3, which has to do with ratios. And I've got a spreadsheet here, as you can see, which comes out of that text of assets and liabilities and stockholders' equity. And it's got an income statement here too. And from these two statements, we're going to do some ratio analysis. You can see coming down the left side of the page, those ratios that I've got emboldened, and then over here on the right side. So we're going to start with liquidity ratios, which is, we'll say the first one is the current ratio. I've done this. It takes the current assets of 1,000, divides it by the current liability of 310, to come up with the current ratio of 3.23, which is very good. As you can see, though, in this case, it's not as good as it was the preceding year. Now we're going to take the acid test ratio, which basically does the same thing, only it takes out the inventories from the current assets. So it divides the total of $10 of cash, $375 of receivables, and divides it by the current liabilities of 310 to come up with that 1.24. Next, we're going to do inventory turnover, which basically takes the receivable. Now, the inventory turnover, I'm sorry about that. It's going to take the inventory and divide it into the sales. So the inventory turnover is 4.88. That's probably very good. Now we're going to take the day sales in receivables, which takes the receivables, 375, and divides that by the average daily sales. And the average daily sales takes that 3,000 in sales and divides it by the number of days in the year, which is 365. So then that number gets divided into the receivables to come up with the day sales outstanding, which is 46. And I can tell you that's very good. I've managed receivables once at GE, another time in the railroad, Union Pacific Railroad Company, and I can tell you the 46 days is not too bad. That's pretty good. Asset turnover. Asset turnover takes the assets of $2,000 and divides them by $3,000, or it divides it into $3,000. So let me say it another way. It's net sales divided by total assets, which equals 1.5. Debt ratio. This says this basically, it takes the total liabilities of 1,064 and divides that by the total assets, and which is 53.2%, which basically says of the total assets of 2,000, 53% of that dollars is funded by debt. The next one is the debt to equity ratio. And the debt to equity ratio takes those total liabilities of 1,064 and divides it by the equity, which is in this case preferred stock as well as the total common equity. It basically, now we're going to take it, we got the common stock price of $23 and $26, and the earnings per share, which takes the net income of 113.5 and divides it by the number of common shares. And that's 50, so it's $2.27 is the earnings per share. Then we're going to do book value per share, which takes the common equity of 896 and divides that by the number of shares, which in this case is 50. So it's $17.92. So we've got common stock price of $23, earnings per share of $2.27, and book value, which is less than common stock, of $17.92. Now I want to go from there down to the price earnings ratio, which is basically takes that common stock price of $23 and divides that by $2.27, which is the earnings per share, to come up with the price earnings ratio, which basically says that for every dollar of earnings per share, the stock price is $10. So if we increase that $2.27 to $3.27, that should make the common stock price eventually it become $33, $10 higher. Number of times interest earned. That basically takes the earnings before interest and taxes of $283.8, and divides that by the interest of $88, which says interest can be earned 3.2 times. Net profit margin. Well, I've done something wrong here. Net profit margin takes net income of $113.50 and divides that by the net sales. It's 3.8%, which is not very good. The next one is return on assets. Well, that takes the $113.50 and divides that by the total assets of $2,000, so that's 5.7%. Now we go down to return on equity. And return on equity is $113.50 divided by total common equity of $896, and that's 12.7%, and that's not that good. I think we've gone through all the ratios here now. Please work them. I look forward to your questions regarding them. Thank you very much.